Do you have everybody's term dates too? You know, I have those.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, no, I don't have that memorized.
And I haven't seen anything published about when. Yeah.
Okay.
We've got a call in, and Tanisha did as well, and we're waiting to hear from the clerks, just when the process and the timeline. Okay. Usually it's February. Yeah. But we're waiting to hear. Mm-hmm. So we'll send everything to them.
And they just elected the 3 members from the council on Tuesday to kind of review all of those. So they didn't elect them, they put their names in the hat. They'll do that officially on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And so from that point forward, I think they'll start processes in February.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the January 2026 Parks and Recreation Board meeting to order. Before we move on to the agenda items, I'd like to acknowledge our hybrid meeting format. Board meetings in the public can now attend in person or via Teams. We will now take roll call. Please stay here when I call your name and position number. Position 1, Laura Borner.
Here.
Position 2, Malia Karakoglia. Here. Position 3, Nicholas Borer.
Here.
Position 4, Sheila Bricey.
Here.
Position 5, Manny Ocampo.
Here.
Position 6, Maggie Catlin.
Here.
Position 7, that's me, I am here. Position 8, Sanvi.
Here.
And it looks like position 9, Reina, is not here today. In addition, the following Parks and Recreation staff are in attendance. Parks and Recreation Director Nick Stroop, Recreation Community Events Coordinator Blaine Land, and we also have Cameron Colvin here from our Community Development Department, and Tanisha Tadme, Parks and Recreation Administrative Coordinator. I will now invite a motion to approve the November 2025 meeting, minutes. It was made by Maggie, second. You can't make it and seconded, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. I don't see anyone with public comment. Thanks, Tanisha. So move on to Chairperson report. In December, Laura actually went to council and delivered the update from our board. I was unable to make it, but Laura went. Laura, do you want to share how that went?
Sure. It was lovely to get to meet council in person. I think I had met a couple of them, but it's I think it's a really good opportunity to get a little bit of time, and they really each take the time to one by one speak with you, which is really nice. Nick was there to kind of hold my hand, which was also helpful. I have notes. I'm trying to pull them up. I don't know why I can't find them. But overall, they had some good comments around the dog statue. They were super pumped about that. They were hopeful that we could potentially as a board be there for some sort of ribbon cutting or something like that. And they just had lots of praise for finally getting that underway. We had a couple comments about the Bothell Bridge, and I think they were supportive of more marketing efforts, but also spoke to really a lot of interest around event programming and trying to bring that back. They were interested in also the Centennial Park Master Gardener's demonstration garden, and super supportive. And that was pretty much it. Not a huge report, but yeah, a lot of positive remarks from them.
Any comments or questions?
It's great.
Thank you for doing that, Laura.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, I watched it later. Okay, on to the next topic. Three of us on the board, myself, Maggie, and Manny, have our terms expiring this year. And so just a heads up that that's happening. There will be, everyone has done this before, so there's an application and an interview that will be coming up February or March. Other notice is for MLK Day, there will be a volunteer event hosted in partnership with the City and Trail Scout. That's Monday, January 19th. It will be happening at the former Wayne Golf Course. And we will be planting far on the west side of the park. We have over 100 trees and shrubs that will be being planted that day. So invite everyone to come out. Any other questions or comments? What's going on?
Do you have an extra pencil?
Sure. My daughter's painting. I'll just grab the first.
Pretty brief.
Manny, we have some.
You are prepared.
I like in the pink, I think.
Okay.
Some flowers.
Stars.
You'll try either of those. I don't know if they have ink, but.
Off topic, not on the agenda. I did want to just bring to the board's attention the frog art piece
Oh, yeah.
on the bridge is so cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Heard it was dependent on something, what, we buy it or something?
So it was part of the arts grant program, and it was meant to be temporary art, but we are in conversations with the artists to determine what the cost is of that. So hopefully some good news shortly.
I bet a fundraiser could.
I think we'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
Be positive.
Great. Yeah, I just walked the trail with my kids on scooters and there's just people always looking at it. It was really fun activating element of the park, so.
There's a frog that looks like him on the Kirkland corridor too. Same artist, I'm presuming, that's climbing a fence on the
Yeah.
corridor, so look out for that if you're in.
When we initially met with the artist, wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out because he had this idea. It was big, and we met with him, and he went back to his workshop, and we saw that. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. It was really cool.
Yeah, frogs and trolls taking over is kind of cool. All right, so we'll move on to the agenda item. We'll have a special presentation from Cameron Colvin talking about the update on the urban forest management plan.
So it's been a little while since I've been before you all to provide an update on this plan. I think when we spoke last July, we were just wrapping up the initial tree canopy assessment and street tree inventory work to really get a lot of that background data to work with. So a lot of good information came out of that. We looked at 2023's existing tree canopy citywide. And we're able to compare that and look back at 2015 and look at the trends of where we're seeing gains or losses over that period of time. Over 2/3 of our existing tree canopy is within critical areas that do have more stringent protections around them. And then during that period between 2015 and 2023, citywide, we saw less than a 1% decrease, around 60 acres of tree loss during that period of time. So a lot of that is because of natural growth that helped offset some of the losses from new development. So something to just kind of take into account there. So since that time, the second half of the year was really focused on public engagement work. We hosted a focus group with representatives from the development community, environmental groups, neighborhood associations, to really hear from them what their common challenges are and where some opportunities might be for the city to step in and help provide resources or guidance. And then we hosted a public open house in October as well to bring forward some of the plan's draft recommendations and get feedback on that. At the public open house in particular, a lot of public concern around loss of trees from new development, kind of as anticipated. That's a very visual thing when people see forested areas of the city being developed. And then interest in some clearer guidance, particularly when it comes to tree maintenance and species selection, both on public and private property. And let's see, so all of the feedback that we got during that outreach helped kind of refine the plan. Blaine was able to send out the latest draft to you all. So really just wanted to provide the opportunity tonight to answer any questions you might have or suggestions, anything that might be missing that needs to be incorporated. We're going to be having a study session with the new council members next Tuesday to kind of catch them up on all the work that happened over the past year, where we're at with the plan, and kind of move from there. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
I spent a little time reading it, and that, so most of the, is this true that most of the canopy is on private properties when we look at it from a Bothell standpoint?
Yes,
City.
correct. Am I able to share screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Let me jump into the meeting real quick and I'll share a map that's pretty useful demonstration of this, but yes.
Is it on your urban forest? Is it on that plan or is it a different one?
I'm gonna just share from a slideshow if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I. So here's a map of the property ownership breakdown, and I'll make that full screen for you all. So yes, the city owns in terms of land area, the city owns a very small portion of land. So the column on the left is percent of land area. So we broke it out into city-owned land, other public, so like county properties, other public agencies, roadway and utility, private conservation, which could be conservation easements or utility easements, and then private land, making up that largest portion in tan on the map there. So I think that is something that kind of jumped out after completing the assessment work, is really recognizing how much of this is going to require a balance of regulations, private incentives, working with private property owners, to help incentivize tree retention and planting on private property.
Is that something we've done before from a Bothell standpoint?
Not
To,
to the extent that we're recommending in the plan.
okay.
Yes.
That was, yeah, okay. Because that's what I kind of picked up. I mean, this first exam of it, and I know, Nick, you had mentioned, I think, usually average is 40% when it was, we first talked about it, and we're at 44%. And from a city standpoint, is there a way to expand what we own, or is, I guess, I mean, driving down some of the roads, I mean, we own the trees, and there's no way to plant more that I can see on some of it, so.
Yeah, so that was really a main purpose of the street tree inventory, was help us to identify those road sections where there may be planting opportunities. And then, through any future public acquisition for future parks, if the funding comes down the line, that would kind of be the other main opportunity.
Okay. And how would Shelton View impact those numbers? Or is that still part of it? Or is that considered private? I just was curious.
Trying to look up there. I think it's classified as probably other public, well,
Purple.
yeah, I think it's that purple up there.
Okay, okay,
Purple.
okay.
Kevin, in terms of the loss you recommended, the annual loss, from a historical standpoint, is that about average, or was that a good year, or a?
It's hard to say. We did, so here's kind of a map, kind of a heat map showing
Yeah.
where the losses and gains were. I know it's kind of hard to tell where exactly in the city it is without the roads on there, but it's kind of hard to say. We did look at kind of trends in neighboring jurisdictions, but just kind of based off of the amount of growth, population growth and new development that we experienced during that time, I think we were a little surprised at how low of a number that was. But like I mentioned, it wasn't equal across the whole city, right? So we have pockets of larger losses where we're experiencing larger growth, particularly along near our growth centers such as downtown, North Creek and Canyon Park, and along our major thoroughfares where we've seen a lot of new housing, particularly between downtown and Canyon Park areas.
At the public meetings, when you had the business, the private community, as well as the neighbors, et cetera, you mentioned that the concern about development and how that's impacting our urban growth area. Was there discussion about, I apologize, I wasn't able to attend, but was there discussion about existing tools that the city has to try and impact that? And perhaps more importantly, because I know a lot of people, particularly ones who are on the side of, they take too many trees. New tools that are being discussed about how to retain the more of the natural environment in all the developments.
Right. Yeah, that was a pretty big focus of both the focus group and open houses. We did try to provide some education on that in terms of how our existing code is structured, what our tree retention policies, how those work, and how critical areas kind of fit into that and how they have stricter requirements. But one of the things that I think will be most useful coming out of this plan is the consultant that we worked with provided pretty detailed recommendations of how we can update our existing tree retention and landscaping standards to incorporate best practices and help mitigate some of the losses over the next couple of years. So that's actually something that community development is going to be launching into as soon as the plan's adopted, and continuing to get that drafted and back before council by the end of this year.
I think that will go a long way to helping with that issue. There's never going to be a perfect solution, especially if it's right next door to you, and the trees come down, and that's awful tough to see. But if the more we can do to encourage the private sector to retain as well as educate our community. I mean, it is private property.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we need development. We need to bring in more housing, and so I know that's going. It's always been a challenge forever and ever. But sounds like this is a good first step in well, maybe not first step. It's ongoing step to try and deal with that.
It's private property, but the city does require so many things of developers, like widening sidewalks, and so they can require, even if it's not a tree on site, mitigation. You put trees elsewhere in the city that may be more suitable than those townhomes of 75 townhomes where, the Doug fir wouldn't fit, right? But like you can think outside the box, because otherwise they replace a tree with Doug fir with a 20-foot tree, which is not really acting as a tree, a deciduous tree, even that, which are very different things. And I feel like we're not thinking outside the box. This shouldn't be tree for tree. It shouldn't be a tree here you should have other alternatives than just.
Yeah, flexibility was definitely the biggest thing we heard from the development community. And
Right.
we did
I'm
discuss.
sure they would like to be like, yeah, we'll pay $50,000 to put,
So it is going to be a little bit of a combination of kind of updating our standards to kind of reflect industry best practices and what neighboring jurisdictions are doing.
Yeah, that's.
And then also, yeah, looking at how we can create some flexibility and potentially incentives to, say if there is a larger, more mature tree on the site, how they can get creative with some of the design layout and maybe flex, lower some setbacks on the other side of the property or create some ways for them to work around that.
I think that's a good point, because I think that part of the issue, it's not the biggest part, but part of the issue is education. Because there's a lot of people who think that it's the city deciding which trees are going to go. And certainly our standards and our development standards have something to say about that. But in the final analysis, I think it's so important for people to understand that what our standards are, what the legal requirements are, but also what opportunities there are for working with the developer or working with the city to maximize that. And I think this is an opportunity. I was aware of a city in Portland who had a similar kind of problem. Big community revolts about taking down too many trees. And this city is Ashland, they not just for the tree retention program, but they came up with an idea. I don't even know if they're still doing it, Nick, but they came up with an idea of a citizen university or citizen education group that you could go to this program and you'd actually get certification. And it helped people get elected, it helped people get, et cetera. It meant that you were aware of with the legal requirements and some of the things that might be esoteric or some of the things that are not necessarily in everybody's purview. And this particular issue, that effort to educate the public really paid dividends. It didn't necessarily mean more trees, but it definitely resulted in, first of all, less controversy about trees, but also more a recognition, hey, we can do more. We can, in this particular area, we could really lobby for, as you said, more replacement trees in terms of the developer. And oftentimes the developers were willing to do that. But so I just think, and I'm not recommending that, but I thought that was a really good idea. And it sounds like you're heading in the direction of including education as a component of the whole program.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you talk a little bit about, it mentioned that you wanted to be aggressive in figuring out a solution for some of these zones that have been upzoned and you're expecting really high intensive growth. What strategies you're looking at, because those trees are inevitably mostly coming down in those areas. So are we thinking that they're going to be a bigger effort for sidewalks trees? Are we going to put in parks where we can plant big trees? Are we planting trees somewhere across the city? What kind of strategies have come up and what have other cities done?
Yeah, kind of a combination of those things. So there's kind of two things at play there. Yes, with the upzoning, with some of that, the amount of impervious surface that's allowed on the property increases in the more dense areas. But even so, our tree retention standards apply on top of that. So if there's larger, more mature trees over a certain size, they still have to retain a certain portion of those on sites if it's a site that's currently undeveloped. So yeah, in terms of strategies, it's definitely going to be a combination of things, whether that be more strict development standards, looking at our open space designation requirements for new developments, things like that.
I see Laura has her hand.
Laura?
Yeah, I'm a little bit fearful that I'm being repetitive, but I think that a big role that this board has is surrounding trees in the city. So I just wanted to make sure I understood it all, but I was looking through this report and it seemed to me like we are expecting a great dip in trees before we come back up again. And I'm just wondering why we aren't looking at mitigating that. Like, why aren't we looking at preventative measures rather than reactive measures? I think like,
That's a
Go
great
ahead.
question. And yeah, I can provide more context on. Where is it? This graphic. So as part of this plan, we tried to do some projections in terms of anticipated continued losses just based on population growth, what we had seen during that period of 2015 to 2023, and then how can we set some realistic goals to really track progress over the next 20 years. So some of the things that went into the assumptions in this are, if I can get to the next slide here. We used that same percentage of tree loss that we saw from 2015 to 2023 as part of that. We considered natural mortality of trees just over time, natural regeneration, canopy growth. But the reason that we may see a dip initially is because we are anticipating that increased growth, and these projections also don't take into account a number of things. So one of the reasons we have the code revisions here is this is not taking into account updates to our code that we're planning on implementing next year. So with that, we're going to help mitigate part of those losses. The other thing that some of the projections don't take into account are the opportunities for infill development. So just as an example, there's been a lot of interest in the property across from Home Depot, which is a very large parking lot. And in the future, there may be opportunities to convert some of that impervious surface to trees, more trees and natural area. So that's just one example of other ways that aren't necessarily factored into this where we may see gains.
I think my biggest concern was probably over the private housing, and a lot of it's just from observations. I can't remember the last time I went past a new development and saw any trees still standing. So I'm just wondering, like, when we look at the fact that most trees are on private property, there are code revisions coming up. Will those revisions be tightening so that perhaps more trees that are existing stay existing on private property?
Yeah, it'll definitely be strengthening. Some of the things that our consultant recommended were updating our significant tree definition. So going from trees over 8 inches in size and moving that down to trees over 6 inches. So that's going to help protect a larger portion of trees. Looking at our current exemptions, which is any property that's under 20,000 square feet, is something that we want to look at, particularly as we densify. We're going to see smaller and smaller lot sizes and trying to do more with less property. So that's another area we want to look at. But yeah, it'll definitely be strengthening.
And then on the private property, and I live up on Norway Hill, and I know there's open property that people own, and then there's people that have beautiful trees on their property. Is there any ordinance or something about them being able to or not being able to cut those trees down because it's on their property?
Yeah, unrelated to development, you're saying.
Yeah, that was a big thing that came up as well. And it's an area where we know that there are some gaps. So some of the recommendations of the plan are looking at our existing permitting process and seeing if either some type of notification process or a formal permit application would help with that. For private tree removals over a certain size when they're not a hazard or,
Okay.
down tree that needs to be removed, those certain situations. Yeah.
This might be nitpicky, but just in case this goes out to the public, I might have found like a mathematical error, and I don't know, but I was actually surprised by the 0.7% that you called out as a, how did you get the 0.7%? Because I came up with something else, but I was curious.
I don't know if I have
Maybe you didn't
in
do those
here
exact numbers either, but
the,
because I was referring to the 60 acre reduction. And when I was doing it, I was like, well, if you have 370, it was what, 3,787 acres of canopied acres, and you lose 60 acres. I don't know. Just maybe we don't have to discuss it now. My number came out closer to like 1.6% of loss.
okay.
So but I might be like interpreting your data wrong. So
I think, so the 1.6% sounds familiar. So our entire study area included city limits as well as the urban growth area. So maybe some of the differences are the city limit denominator versus the
maybe I was just using the numbers that were stated there, about 44% and, the
Yeah, we can.
I don't know. I just don't want someone else to be calling you out on it later, so maybe just double check. This is a matter of almost double the difference.
How do we work with the state, like with the 405 redo and everything that was highlighted and all the trees they cut down?
Yeah, that is a good
Which is
question.
noise mitigation too, like the Beardsley, all the trees that they cut down right along the highway by Beardsley, like the neighbors right there, that'd be.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure what our level of influence or impact over larger projects like that is, but yeah, that's something our transportation group
Yeah,
could
I
probably.
mean, I can
answer
speak to
better.
at least one of the projects that
Yeah.
affected our North Creek Forest. You'll see.
Oh, yeah, at the dead
red
end
line
there. Yeah.
So that is a culvert project, and that's a project that was required by a Supreme Court ruling to open it up to fish. And, sometimes when they do those projects, it's very significant. And to get the grade right, to do everything that they need to do to get the stream operable, they actually have to remove a significant amount. And so the city didn't really have a lot of say in that actual removal in that project, but we've been involved in it. So we've certainly been having conversations with them, trying to protect everything that we could, but they are under.
They will replant it though, too.
Yeah, and it will be fully
Yeah.
replanted. It's just when they take it all down, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it is that shock, like you mentioned, you're like, wow.
Yeah. And they'll have to probably maintain it for at least like 10 years or
Correct.
something like that, so.
We're looking at the trees that are able to be removed, and I'm on West Hill, so the interesting thing about West Hill is they were all planted 50 years ago, and so they're not necessarily, maybe this is changing, I'm not so sure about the inches, what that really means, but a lot of those haven't been protected, and they're pretty easy to take down because they're trees, but there is quite a bit of tree canopy that has developed in the last 50 years. And combining that with some pretty significant upzoning in the area, are you guys thinking about like in that kind of situation where you have a very large section of the city that could lose a very significant amount of trees and is ripe for pretty significant development? Are you thinking about allowing less density on a lot if it protects trees? Like, I'm just thinking of lots, it would be basically impossible to get the density that you're required to have to develop it without taking
Right.
down more trees. So are there talks about that? Are there talks about 50-year-old trees being protected now? Like is that kind of?
I would imagine most species that are 50 years old are going to meet our preservation requirement. So at least a portion of those would have to be retained as part of the development proposal. But I think the type of incentives that you're talking about, offering the option for developers to build up and retain more open space on sites rather than having to take out more trees to meet, their zoning, or providing more flexibility there. That's something we definitely want to look into as part of the code updates.
Just like thinking about my own property, I'm zoned for 25 to 50 units per acre now. I have 5 property, and it's with the size you would have to fit 5 or 6 units at least where my one home is. So I don't know how you would preserve a lot of that canopy, and I wouldn't say that's a non-unique characteristic of the section that we're in. So and this is a large section of the city, not just a little section, and there's a lot of trees there right now. So just wondering if we're thinking ahead about what that could mean and what those new.
Yeah, that's a good question that we can, I think, dig into a little more as we start looking at potential code amendments.
And it's a 35-foot height, so you still only have 2 stories. It's not like you can go up. So.
Right.
And with all this, how is the Parks Department connected or involved in this?
Yeah.
Assessment, management, execution, et cetera.
Multiple aspects. I mean, ongoing maintenance for sure. Parks make up a large portion of existing tree canopy. It's also presents the largest opportunities for planting opportunities. So multiple aspects.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then similar to what you did in Valhalla with the private property on building up I'm assuming the side of the flue or the waterway. What are the opportunities to broaden outside of that to start planting trees and working with private citizens to enhance our tree canopy? I don't know, and I don't know that you would have that answer, but to me, when I read that today, I was just like, this is part of what maybe we can look at as we're.
I mean, that just goes back to what you said before about education and like the amount of trees that I see in these neighborhoods with ivy on them that are going to come down in the, storms that we're having so frequently now. Just daily on my walks, it's just so many trees with ivy consuming them. And then just pruning practically. People don't have to cut down a Doug fir because they're scared. They can prune it in a way. I mean, that's costly. You usually hire someone, but there's other alternatives. And it just goes back to the education part of how to preserve the existing trees that we have.
Yeah, we've even seen cases in the city of people just topping their street trees in front of their house just because they don't want to deal with, I guess, the leaves or maintenance. It's very, there's definitely a big need for the education.
Yeah, or I've seen the, tree giveaways too, but then if you don't educate people on selecting the right trees or the right trees, so.
Any other questions I can answer? No, we're probably out of time here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
All right, Blaine has a staff report.
Yes. Back up. Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, thank you.
So for our staff report, I'm just going to go through a couple different slides to update the board on capital projects, upcoming meetings, engagement events, just just a reminder about the pros plan and the intent behind that. And then I'm going to finish with some notes from our meeting in November about those agenda topics and make sure I was on track with those agenda topics. So capital project update, the two that I just want to focus on because they're most pressing, and the next slide we'll talk about those engagement event is the Park Bothell Landing improvement. So we had a scheduled open house in December that has gotten rescheduled now for January. As a board, you're not required to attend, but I do think it would be very valuable for you to attend that open house on January 22nd. The next slide will show you all the details about this event, but it will be at Lytle House. Rather than hosting here at City Hall, we'll be hosting at Lytle House. And it's open house, so you can come throughout that duration from 6 to 8. Why I do think it's going to be of value is you're really going to see the refinements to the conceptual design. And in addition to that, there will be other sub-consultants there and professionals to talk specifically to skate parks, specifically about art, specifically about the architectural features. And then again, the main consultant that you've all met, they'll give a high-level overview of just what they've refined. I'll let Nick add any comments to the Park Bothell Landing, but it will be the last opportunity for additional input before we kind of close that design phase. But I think it will be instrumental in your attendance. If you can't attend, my hope is that in February, we'll figure out something to bring that schematic or that iteration to the board and kind of go through what was shared at that open house. Nick, did you want to add anything about the?
Yeah, I would say that in February, we will bring that back. So if you can't make that meeting,
Wait past that day.
Okay. Yes.
we'd love to, share that with you. And like Blaine mentioned, we've done a lot of refinements. So you're going to see a lot more detail. It's very, very cool what's happening. And we believe it meets the vision of the community. So yeah, if you can't make that, we'll definitely bring it back and we'll have a conversation here at the Parks Board.
Yes.
Will you email what's being presented on the 22nd?
Yes, so the consultant basically hasn't provided me all of their boards. I have some of them printed over at operations, but the 5 workshops that they're going to be talking on is the inclusive playground, community spaces and gathering spaces, the skate park, community rooms, the ecological function. So there's a couple different zones that they're refining, but yes, if I can't do it prior to it, I will also have that at the February meeting as well. Okay. And my hope is that I could bring the printouts, the easels that we already going to have here too for you all to view at that February meeting.
So what are you looking for at the February meeting?
For our February board meeting.
Are you looking for feedback? What are you looking for?
No, I think at the February meeting, it will give you all enough time to see what the public had been able to see. There's only a short window of refinement to that new design because there's so many other elements beyond my purview that Aaron would speak to, but it's essentially why did they move things in different zones? Why did they expand the inclusive playground? Why did they have to adjust the historical buildings? That's going to be shared at that January 22nd. So as much as I'm learning at that January 22nd meeting, I can bring that information back to the board. There'll be some opportunity for input and discussion, but primarily that January 22nd, they're in a short window because we didn't get to do the December meeting to really refine it to meet those permitting timelines and the timelines of the project itself.
And just important to remember, we did go through the conceptual design process. We went through that approval process. That kicked us right into the design. So now it's that refinement where you get into the really finer detail and you realize that this may or may not work. And so that's where we're at. But everything is coming together really nicely. And I think you'll be really impressed with what you see.
Is that when they can give a more concrete cost?
Yes, our cost estimating is happening as we speak. I will say that it is not, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's not cheap, but there's opportunity to do some phasing. We definitely have a very active group that's worked on some fundraising for the skate park. We've secured a little over $2 million for that, so.
But from the consensus here, I'll make sure that I get some things from Aaron for that February meeting to make sure that those questions are answered. With the Former Wayne Golf Course, this is the kickoff. So I'm very excited. Next Thursday on the 15th, here at City Hall. The consultant's going to come in and they're going to give a presentation, give a really in-depth overview of the site analysis prior to the open house. So the beginning 25, 30 minutes is going to be a very good analysis of the park and the 89 acres and open space and the timeline of it. And the hope is, again, it's not required for the board, but I do think it'll be very educational and be valuable if you can attend. We are going to record that meeting. So
Okay, I was going to ask if it was going to be, I will be out of town.
okay, yeah, we will record that meeting and we'll work to have that up and live. Within that open house, the goal from there is there's twofold. There's educating the community. We were prepared that there's going to be questions coming to that open house.
There'll be a few dog parks.
There might be. So,
Based on the feedback I got, there might be a few.
listening and educating will be the number one, and that's going to take some time, right? Our operations team actually just started installing the educational boards out in Former Wayne Golf Course. How those will work is, I've shared this with Whitney, but the signs, basically, there's twofold. One shows the acquired land and what the usage, and we know active and passive, and we do the timeline, but to those terms, not many people understand what the terminology behind that is. Of course, there's links to the website. What we think and what we're hoping is that those signs inspire people to attend this meeting so they can learn from the experts in the field.
Okay, yeah. I haven't been down there for a while.
Yeah, and they're new, so the
Okay.
operations just put that out.
Okay.
Within that, there's a couple of things that we're preparing for, the consultant's preparing for, is we're going to understand the unknowns. We're going to understand the requests, but it's going to be, we've empowered the consultant to educate and inform how that land was acquired, the funding sources, what does passive and active mean, what does habitat restoration look like, what restoration's already going on out there. There's a lot to show. So at that open house, there's going to be 6 stations. All of them are really well in-depth stations. There's going to be a expert within each realm. I know we have surface water and storm management coming out. I think it's Amanda Royal that's going to be there for the Sammamish River and Juanita project. That's going to speak to that. So there's 6 stations at the open house. And the intent is for those who are aspiring to ask questions about, say, maybe a dog park, we'll have someone there to kind of help mitigate the questions, but also inform them a little bit more. We also want to toe that line of, there has been questions coming to us of, oh, you're building a park. Well, no, it is a public open space. It's always been that. But define what park means to people is going to be important because
That's a really, really good point.
yes, and many of them think, oh, that's structure, but we're going to inform them that actually you can't do a lot of that overdevelopment. But their presentations, it really highlights that. It is lengthy. We know that it has some length to it, but it really does dive into.
I pushed.
It does dive into what those questions are coming our way.
If we give it a name that has blah, 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 green space,
Mhm.
that might be helpful.
Exactly. Yes.
Because right now Google named it Wayne Park.
Exactly. And I'm glad you said that because we're working on, at the same time at the open house, we're trying to launch the survey. And this first survey is going to be relatively short. It's just to get general awareness. The consultant's trying to figure out what do people know about this space. And the question goes is, what do you call this place with your friends when you visit? Because we need to understand how are we identifying it.
Yeah.
There will be a naming project. I don't know when and how, but that will be.
Yeah, especially when you call it a formal golf course.
Yeah.
Of course you can run dogs on a former golf course.
Yes. So if you want to come, if you can't come, record it. If you are going to come, if you could just ping me the day before. Tanisha and I, or Tanisha is putting up notices of quorum because we have to do that for any open houses for both board and council if they do attend. Oh, awesome. So that's just kind of the notice on those 2 parts. But since I kind of spoke of those, this is the slide that if you want to take a picture of, this is just showing you the open houses. So again, next Thursday from 6 to 8 is for the Wayne Open Space Action Plan. That's at Bothell City Hall. Thursday, the 22nd is at Lighthouse, and that is for the Park of Bothell Landing improvement. And the third open house that I'm highlighting now is for the Bothell Pros Plan. I'll dive a little bit deeper into that in the next slide, but I just wanted to highlight this slide. For those who are on the call, And then anybody that's scheduling. Many of the questions do come as how we're promoting this. I just wanted to highlight all the channels that we are promoting these open houses. And again, any former stakeholder that has already previously attended these events are being emailed or phone called to come. Whether or not their schedules work, but we are being truly intentional trying to get those that have expressed interest in the former engagement events. Before I switch over to the pros plan, any questions on those?
I have a question. At the Former Wayne Golf Course open house, we be collecting feedback, and then on the website, it shows that there's 2 meetings. Are there just 2 meetings, or will there be more meetings?
I'm gonna look at the website where it says 2 meetings.
There's like a graphic, and it's like meeting here, meeting here.
Oh, the timeline of it.
Yeah,
Yes. There will be many more meetings. Different open houses for different reasons. So this first open house is, yes, there are a few feedback, but we think it's going to be more education. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of questions that come in and confusion of the space, and confusion of how do we utilize it, delineating open space versus park. What does park mean? I think the first open house is really going to inform the consultant of what do they need to do for the public to educate through that process. The second open house would technically be reviewing the first revisions of the conceptual design based off of the feedback that they're hearing. They're hearing, oh, we want logs and natural areas. We want open pastures. We want tree canopy. That's what their hope is from the second open house, is they're going to start working on conceptual design. And then the community would see it, kind of like what we did at Inclusive Playground at Pavel. The community would see it. Then there's another iteration, and that's where the board would really play a heavy hand in understanding, is this truly alignment with the board's vision, but also the community's vision?
Okay, so after the second meeting, then they move towards conceptual design. That makes sense.
Yeah.
When is the second one?
They haven't decided yet. I think there's going to be a lot of figuring out with this first meeting. Truly, I think the pulse of the community is going to dictate how they kind of roll it out. Because we do adjust to the community needs and lack of understanding or understanding.
Is there gonna be like an online survey like there's been in the
Yeah.
past?
Along with the education that had to take place, part passive, active, et cetera, feedback that I've gotten, a lot of this information and aspirations, the race track of, bike
Yeah.
track, off trail track. But even though it's small, my understanding is the 4 acres, that's going to be, I think, a real topic of conversation, because there aren't those restrictions on that part of the park. And so,
Isn't that the parking lot?
well, I don't know. It's a parking lot now,
Yeah,
but,
it doesn't have to
I
be.
think people, when you tell the people, you can't do dog park here, or, a baseball field here or something, but over here on these 4 acres, it's very small. You can't put a skate park there. I guess maybe you could.
Oh, you could.
But could you park enough people? And I'm just saying that that's going to be, hoping that the consultants and the expectation is, once the people understand what you can't do, then we got to talk about what you can do on that small piece of land. One of the feedback that I've gotten is, where are you going to put parking? And that one, obviously there's a opportunity for that there, but that may be counter to what other people's expectations are for. I mean, at one point we talked about a hotel there, or some kind of revenue generation there. And I know that people have heard those things around, and so the open house is going to be very important, I'm sure.
And the consultant's prepared to address those issues.
Good.
The focus isn't going to be so much on what you can't do. It's going to be on what we can do.
Yeah,
And
I think that's great.
Keep that conversation there, because I think there's so many wonderful opportunities out there. And
Really
you're
is.
right, we've heard some they're great ideas. They really are.
Sure.
With greatest intent. But they're probably not going to fit there. But we're going to really focus on what we can do there.
I think
And
that's
they are going to
great.
address that 4 acres.
And the feedback I've given to people is the same thing, this is a tremendous opportunity, and, we could do so much there. that I think the public would really, really like, but you have to temper that, all the expectations with cost analysis and how it fits into the overall pros plan and et cetera, et cetera. So it's still going to be very exciting.
I think a lot of their questions do go to what you're saying, Manny, and I think it's that presentation, why I like it so much is they're going to evoke more conversation and thought for those who attend. One of the questions that I thought was great is like, how do you want to experience the river? Is it a viewing deck? Is it a picnicking area? They're going to evoke those conversations or thoughts that are going to make people think of it beyond just what is currently being used. Another element is if there's walking trails, what does that look like? How much habitat restoration do we want to have to create a space for walking, but in a safe nature way?
Exactly right.
I think what I'm really hoping is that the open house is well attended so that it helps those who have questions, but we're going to have to really push the recording of that open house as well that presentation does highlight what you're saying.
Well, I'll encourage everybody that has talked to me about it. Of course, oftentimes they want to talk to you about it, but when you say, go to the meeting, I don't want to.
I think signage is going to be really important.
Yeah.
Because the people really, especially if there's a sign on the front 9 right there, and then in Blythe and in the back 9.
Yeah, I know one just got put in Blythe today.
Okay.
2 just got put in
I
front
haven't been there for a
of
while, so.
Wayne. I was down there today and
good.
saw people taking a look at it and asking questions. And then the other part is us equipping our operations team to know what to say and how to interact,
Right,
because they're
yeah.
out there all the time.
Right.
So we were speaking with Rob and Ryan today just to get them up to speed. So there's a couple other pronged approaches. Internally, our staff is speaking with the crew to get them up to speed with Parkaboth Landing and with Wayne,
Yeah.
because there's questions that are coming their way that we want them to feel empowered to inform as well. So the next item I wanted to highlight was the pros plan. Just saving that date, we are having an open house, but I'm going to kind of go through the pros plan and what the goal of this open house is. So just to remind us, what is the pros plan? It is that long-range planning document that we have to update every 6 years. Over the course of the last 7 months, we've done over 15 engagement endeavors, along with stakeholder relations, focus groups. All of that assessment and engagement allows us to understand creating that visionary document, aligning our goals within that document with the community values. And it does ultimately create a transparent expectation of strategies, projects, and policies. That will be, I call it, our guiding document as a Parks Department. And so when I mentioned that open house, the open house that's coming in February is going to give a high-level overview of the common themes and trends and assessment that is coming out of the current pros plan that they're developing. They're going to talk about what trends have they seen, what themes do they hear. So could it be themes meaning we want improved trailways, we want additional programs back, what trends are they seeing, what does community buildings look like, what is the use of those community buildings, for the size of this city, how much staffing would it acquire to enhance said park. So you're going to hear a lot of that information at that open house. So right now, again, they're refining the pros plan document based off of the community survey. At the last meeting, and we went to council back in November, we had over 700 people participate in that community survey, which is a great number. And in addition to the 300 plus people, we can't state the number. I think it was far beyond 300 with all those engagement events. I always noted that UW Bothell Cascadia College engagement event was really successful in getting youth involved within the process. All of that long-winded is to say is that open house is going to highlight to the community where we're at. Are we on trend? Does this align with what you're thinking? And this timeline kind of reminds the board is where we're at. So we're in that December, February. They're analyzing the engagement summary. They're doing the site-wide analysis. There are questions that you all had in our November meeting about coming back and talking about land acquisition and funding sources. That's all being put together in this pros plan right now. In that latter part of February is the opportunity to hear those high themes. And so we'll have that open house in the end of February, so 26th. Then we as staff would come to the board in our March 10th meeting to really, if you are not able to attend that open house, to basically give you essentially the open house study session opportunity to provide input into the pros plan. So that March 10th board meeting will be pretty pros heavy. And then in March 17th, staff will go do a study session with council, again, to say, this is what we're trending with this guiding document. And then once the February, March timeframe is done, we'll do another segment of community engagement to highlight, okay, this is what we've built out. This is what it looks like. In June, that's the hope, is a plan adoption. Of course, that comes back to the board for plan adoption. So we kind of have a heavy lift in these next few months, but I just wanted to highlight where we're at and where we're going and the purpose of that open house. I know many questions that came in our November meeting about agenda topics. A lot of that's going to be highlighted in this pros plan. We won't get into the granular details in that February open house, but we as staff will be able to provide some of those high moving trends, assessments, land acquisition, some of those questions you had asked. Nick, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say that the adoption really is a 4-part process. So we'll be bringing it back to the Parks and Recreation Board. We'll be taking it to the Planning Commission. We will then take it to council, and finally it will round out at the state with RCO approval. So.
That's a big thing for a potentially young board to be also chewing on.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes back to, I remember that board orientation that you all went through, and I was like, here's the pros plan. If you want to read a 60-page document, well, we get to read another one together, and it just kind of helps you understand, some of the questions that we've all asked ourselves is, well, why are we doing this project at this time? And why aren't we focusing on this? And that pros plan really does guide it. One of the things that we did ask the consultant is to highlight all the things we have achieved in the former pros plan in this current one, so that the community sees we are listening to the needs and how it kind of all worked out. And those things that I know that we've hit the ground running, but reminding the success of the inclusive playground and the ball field lights and the turf and all those elements that have already happened that we've sometimes have forgotten, but that will be highlighted in the achievements that have been done.
And ultimately how it aligns into the Imagine Bothell plan that was just adopted in 2024. There's a Parks and Recreation element to that, and everything feeds into that. So this pros plan is one of the documents that feeds into that ultimately, but we're using that as the framework for some of those goals that we outlined in the Imagine Bothell plan.
In that corner, I think there's an elephant. Part of the pros plan, I know it's even up there someplace about revenue sources. And obviously, that's going to be a very important element. But at the risk of being too finite, every time revenue options are discussed, grants, specific budget recommendations, et cetera. But always a park bond is talked about. Whether or not an actual recommendation for a specific park bond comes out of this effort, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't at least mentioned. I continue to get feedback from people, plans, more study sessions, more surveys, more outreach. When are we going to get to vote to have some of these things done? And I think the quicker we can get to at least starting to broach the subject. I mean, it's not going to be in 2026, obviously, but 2027, 2028. I mean, even if we give a window of a year or two that we could tell people, this is coming. You're going to get a chance. I mean, if you like the idea of the Park at Bothell Landing design, which you're going to be able to talk about, there's going to be an opportunity to vote to get that funded and get it built. In golf course, there may be some, one of the things that always comes up is more parkland perhaps in the Snohomish County portion of Bothell. all of those things are very expensive. And I just want us to not lose track of the fact that park bond or levy, both. And when we talk about staffing, a levy of some kind, at one point you even talked about maybe doing something with the PRSA. And so all of those, I think, is going to be important. It's something that I will focus on because, I want to be here when the park in Bothell
That's what I was thinking.
has the ribbon
I
cutting.
know. I have a 10 and 14-year-old. I'm like, I'm not sure they're going to even enjoy it once it's built because they're going to be too old
Well,
and
my grandson, he just turned 15, and I said, they're going to build a great skateboard park.
Yeah, but
When?
I know. I was
I
like,
have my
oh,
skateboard
God.
now, and anyway, that's my,
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So this is front and center in the pros plan. This is front and center. It is a priority of the council. It is in their 2040 vision. It is a priority. It's in fact their first priority to look at what a parks levy is. So this is very front and center. We are doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And as you know, there's process. And process, I can't sit here today and say that we're taking this out as a levy because there is legal process that has to take place in order to make that decision. We're in a budget year too. So not only this is a revenue opportunity, but the council's going to have to consider a number of revenue opportunities. And that will all be part of that conversation. But we hear you loud and clear. And I will say that it is very front and center. We've taken some really, really deep dives in looking at what our capacity is, what our community is excited about. And I will just say that I'm very optimistic that this will be a conversation that you'll be hearing more about in the near future.
but I don't want to come off as being negative, because I feel that too. In the past, I do know something about the past. It wasn't, we all know something about the past, but it wasn't the time. There wasn't the community energy and momentum that we now have. And I'm very obviously pleased to hear that, Nick, and I've talked to some council members and they are really excited about it too. And it seems to me, whatever magic that needs to happen is happening. And anything that we can do as a park board or as individual citizens, we're willing to do.
Yeah.
I think.
Definitely more to come. And, I think
It's a good topic.
the street levy really helped inform sort of where our community was at. We've heard in that survey, there was overwhelming support for the idea of funding parks. So, we are making good progress. We've done some really deep dives financially. And we brought on a number of consultants to help us through some of those technical issues. So we are moving in a positive manner.
I fully expected that, Nick. Thank you.
This slide just highlights the proposed agenda topics that was discussed in November. I think I condensed it down into 3 main topics and then the other topic suggestions. I just wanted to make sure I was on the right track with what was provided. So I heard there was a pros plan study session assessment, which we will be having hopefully in that March, April, but the meat and potatoes of it, I guess, was land acquisition, available land, funding sources, and analysis of land use, prospective land opportunities. Those are some of like the big bullet points that came out of that. I know there's going to be a lot more within the pros plan. You're going to talk about industry trends, programs, staffing, all the elements, walk shed. But those were the big things that I heard from the board. Is that correct? Those were the kind of larger ones. I know there was a subset when it said funding to maybe have Nick or someone down the future define what a bond, define what a levy looks like. I know that's within that scope too.
That'd be great.
And then the next item that was discussed was a dog park land acquisition. What does that look like? But to come to the board with proper information on what current codes are, zoning policies, maintenance requirement, pros and cons, and potential property inventory. That's a little bit of a beefier subject, but it would, definitely come in the 2026 to come with the board of like, what are the current codes? What are the BMC codes? What zoning policies do we need to discuss? And what land out there do we either currently own or could be rezoned, so on and so forth.
The parking lot across from Home Depot.
There you go. Yes.
You heard it tonight.
Just grind that parking lot up and throw some.
What about some trees in there?
Yeah, that, on 85th Street, that little pop-up it was like a park and ride right off 85th Street, and then became like a community garden skate park, all the things right here.
Yeah.
So that will be one of the subjects. I'm thinking that will probably go towards more summer, fall time, having that your first 3 upcoming meetings is gonna be pros plan, Wayne, and Pavel, but we'll get there. Another item that came up was an overview of current city programs, emerging needs, trends, and planning. So one of the items was, can we come out, have maybe Gabby with DEI and Ashish and Anand, who are human services and economic development, provide us an overview of already the city programs that they provide, but what we're providing as well. I know the trends, emerging trends will come out of the pros plan, but it will be of value to highlight to the board.
Yeah.
What other programs do we already offer or co-partnering with? That one will be a little bit of an easier subject. And then the other topics that were discussed were maybe a special presentation on the Safe Streets and Sidewalks Levy, NPRSA partnership, who is that, marketing communications, and then the volunteer programs. The reason why I'm bringing that to the board is when Whitney and I have one-on-ones each month, we kind of look at this and we try to look at the trajectory of our agendas. Just wanted to make sure we were on the right track. If there's anything we need to add or remove or keep.
I always think it's really cool when operations comes in. I know Scott, a
Mhm.
little squeamish, but it is great to hear someone.
I know that
Maybe Laurel.
Laurel would be great.
Yeah.
I don't think any of you have met Shelby. Yeah, you met Shelby?
Shelby.
I think Shelby would be.
Yeah.
No, I don't think she has. I think Shelby would give you really good insight into the third-party permitting body of work that Shelby has. That's the other element of other city programs. And then Shelby does manage our volunteer work parties. So I can give a preview of that too. So I think operations maybe be Shelby.
Yeah.
Also, another person that you might have met is Danae. So Danae does manage our arts and tourism. The frog is under Danae's purview of work. But it might be of value to hear from Danae of like all the different elements that she's working on, one from the tourism lens, but also from the arts commission. So kind of going into that, the amazing cool frog that needs to be named one day. I think it would be great.
Fun little contest.
It would be a fun contest when we own it. But it would be good for Danae to highlight what that creative art grant looks like, how that creative art grant happens. So as that is a grant recipient, it is a part technically under the umbrellas of Parks and Recreation. But she's actually had like about 7 different, maybe 6 different creative art grant recipients that have done something in the parks. If you remember that mural, the pollinator mural that was down at Pavel, that was one, along with the conjunction at the Whale Scouts, Rachel's mural. So there's been a lot of other things that are taking place. So I'll put operations, but maybe from the other staff as well.
Right. In terms of, when you get to the discussion of the volunteer programs, and this may be just showing my ignorance, but I'm not aware of how we recognize and publicize, acknowledge the tremendous volunteer efforts that we do. I know you do stuff every weekend practically. And do we have a way to involve the council or involve the park board in acknowledging and recognizing them? Certificate, a Snickers bar, or something like that. I just.
Something I often talk about that too is there's this coin phrase in some park departments called like our power partners, our park partners, and how do we highlight them more from a public side, but also is there a once a year just kind of thank you roundtable, and that would be under Shelby's purview of like, deciding what that could look like. But she does manage a lot of work parties that come through, and it's like that silent thing that happens that we don't even recognize.
Yeah, exactly.
How much our operations team is involved with all the work parties. So
Yeah.
like CGen comes out, there's some large ones. So maybe that would be something just to chat with Shelby about how does that look like, or what are we currently doing that I could share with you.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That is all I have, Whitney. Is there any other? Yep.
I did have two just real quick operations updates. So right at the end of the year, our longtime cemetery contractor gave us 2 weeks' notice. So.
They're the people that take care of the cemeteries?
Yeah,
Like
well,
lawn
take
maintenance?
care, well, and the burials too.
Oh, geez.
So,
Oh, yeah, we do too.
which kind of puts us in a bind because this contractor had been working with us for a long, long time. And so we are currently out for an RFP to cover those services. We do know that it's going to cost significantly more than what we've been paying. We've gone out every 3 years with an RFP, and this contractor has always been the lowest, almost to a fault. So we're addressing that issue, but it is a bit of a niche sort of kind of work, and so we're not even sure what we're going to get. But that is happening right now, and obviously it's a concern to us because we have a operating cemetery.
How many burials do you get there a year? Maybe very many.
You know, it really depends on the year, so we're no longer selling plots or anything
Yeah,
like that.
just
but
family-owned things,
We
yeah.
still have, probably 100 or so to go. And so it really just depends. We've had years where we've had 15, we've had years where we've had 1.
Yeah, okay.
And we, as staff, we also participate in some of those, so just out of necessity.
Wow.
But let me add, sometimes someone would ask to be put in with like an urn burial with their family member. So those are kind of unlimited in a way.
Oh, there's no limit on
Yeah.
They own that. They paid for that. You can-
that.
So if it's
Yeah.
another urn.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
And then the other, just real quick item, I'm pretty excited about this. We finally were able to get a snowplow for one of our trucks. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but we do have parking lots and we do have, operations that go. We typically support, city facilities where we're working with the fire department to make sure that they can get in and out of their buildings. The city hall's another one, but we also have parks facilities that we didn't have a way to get, a small truck into that has a plow. And so Laurel was able to put together a plan, and we just had that installed today, so I'm excited.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You gonna name that?
Well, I mean, maybe.
Even everything at this point.
And it's not something that we use often, but when you need it.
Yeah, no, it's
It
absolutely.
is, yeah.
The schools first, they'll make it.
I'm with you, but having kids, I agree.
Fundraising strategy.
Yeah.
Very
A lot of
good.
parents.
The only thing left on our agenda is an update on the dog statute.
Yes, Jack got back. I sent the email to him. He's going to send an invoice to Nick, and he will start it. He said he would think June, July.
Oh, that's good timing.
Yeah.
So if all things go well, I still have not got pictures from the mom of the actual real dog. So
We have
that,
pictures of the old statue, but not the dog.
yeah,
So I'll work on that. I did have an opportunity. I sat down with Steve and Joanne right before Christmas.
Oh, good.
And we had a wonderful talk for over an hour and just catching up and stuff. So I'll make sure to try to reach out and get that. But they actually just came up to the office and wanted to have a conversation after they heard of the great work
Yeah.
that was put into this. And they were so excited and so grateful.
I think John reached out to him too.
Yeah.
Do they still live in Bothell?
They do, yeah, they do. And I did also broach the idea of like what that would look like, in sort of a ribbon cutting, something. And they're going to think it over.
Yeah.
It's not something, obviously there's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of
Sure.
other things. So we want to make sure it's right with the family.
Yeah.
But they're super appreciative and they couldn't thank the Parks Board enough for the work that you've done, so.
They're so sweet, and they don't strike me as anyone that would really want like a spotlight kind of shown.
Right.
But yeah.
They're super
incredibly
excited.
sweet, Yeah.
They could also just be people in the, in the crowd, and they don't have to be called out or anything, or
Yeah.
say anything if they didn't want to.
Yeah, if Nick, you want, I don't want to keep bugging her. I haven't pinged her in a few months, so I didn't want to.
I'll reach out to both of
So
them. yeah.
really, until we got it
Done.
said and done, I thought, I don't want to.
We were looking, we had an ornament for the tree that went, up at Bothell Landing that had sort of the Doug, memorial thing on it, and we unfortunately just can't find it. I searched the Lytle house, I was up in the attic for like 2 hours looking through every ornament, I just couldn't find it.
Thank you, Sheila, for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
little plodded along a little. My part, just, but.
It would be nice to get some real, not publicity, but like, tell people the backstory, because most people wouldn't even understand or know. So like somehow through social media or whatever.
Yeah, there's an article from the original
Well, there's
one, in the Kenmore Bothell Reporter, when that was still.
Yeah, there's a plaque actually on site in the
Yeah.
garden there that does speak to what took place.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean.
But I'm just saying, all of a sudden, this like dog statue shows up. I don't think a lot of people would really make connections.
What about outreach with West Hill Elementary and just at least informing them or?
Yeah,
My kids go there and love dogs when they're not being touched by them. And they love them from a distance. But, a lot of what her story was about the kids walking past the dog and decorating the dog and kind of patting it on the head. And so it might be nice. And I can, because I'm parent at the school, I can reach out to the principal or something and just say that this is happening, if that's helpful.
Yeah, it absolutely, we always work with the principal there with any issues that we have out there, and they've been very gracious, and we partner with a number of things, but as having a child there, or two children there, it might, be.
I could imagine
awesome
there's
if
still
we could reach out.
teachers there that were around
Yeah,
when
I'm
the
sure.
dog was there, so they probably
Yeah.
can.
It might be nice, though, if we do feel like we wanted to kind of highlight the memorial of it. Take the blessing prior to from the parents, just to understand where they're,
And my wife, Kristen, actually she's a teacher at Sorensen, so there's opportunities to connect there too.
Yeah, a lot of all the walk home kids go through Doug Allen.
Yeah.
And so there's gonna be a lot of
On
foot
the
traffic.
way. Yeah, when I was checking it out originally, there was a lot of kids going through.
Yeah, like if it's installed in the summer, it'll be like a new fixture. When kids come
right.
back to school. Yeah. Anything for the good of the order?
All right.
Invite a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I second.
Made by Manny, seconded by Malia.
I know.
All right. Good night, Laura.
Bye, you guys. Good to see you all. Good discussion.